Body image in dance, specifically ballet, is and has always been an issue. I know that changes are being made, but you can't rewrite history, and it has affected many dancers over the years. I had the absolute pleasure of talking about this and many different issues with former principal dancer with the Birmingham Royal Ballet, Dorcas Walters. Dorcas was one of my absolute favourites before getting into the Royal Ballet. I would watch her repeatedly and I would just copy her on the TV all the time. She trained with Elmhurst Ballet School, the Royal Ballet School, and Merle Park. Her career came to an abrupt and somewhat traumatic end. It was both interesting and very upsetting to hear. An 18-year career just over like that. Dorcas has, however, bounced back and is now a fully qualified Gyrotonic method instructor and talks about the benefits for dancers as well as non-dancers. She was also a dance fellow on the Clore Leadership Programme, which is an arts leadership development program funded by the Arts Council and other members of the arts world. Dorcas also discusses the difficulties in finding a job in the industry during the recession. An amazing chat. Let's go. So you were a student at Elmhurst Ballet School, Merle Park School, and the Royal Ballet School. What was your experience?
Well, I went to Elmhurst when I was 11 because I didn't get into the Royal Ballet School. And I did I auditioned for all the other big ballet schools, basically, and we chose Elmhurst. And I really wanted to go to boarding school. I'd read all the Mallory Towers and St Clair's Enid Blyton books when I was little, and I just thought boarding school was going to be a big hoot, you know? So I really wanted to go to boarding school. And when I got there, I actually got quite homesick, but I felt like nobody at the time at Elmhurst really took ballet very seriously.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was most of the people in my class were never going to be ballet dancers.
Right.
And it was a bit kind of like the teachers didn't really take the ballet seriously. So a lot of them went on the stage, but they didn't become ballet dancers. And I was really focused on, I wanted to be a ballet dancer. And so then in the holidays, I would have private lessons, sometimes with my old teacher. And she quite quickly said to my parents, Dorcas is losing her technique. You need to take her out of this school.
Wow.
And I think I probably kind of agreed, you know, because I wasn't really very happy with how things were going. Although I made friends and I liked being at the school. So I came out of Elmhurst after a year and I went to one of the private schools that I had also done exams for at the same time. And the headmistress was very accommodating at this school, Putney High School. And she was like, you know, she can miss hockey, she can miss RE to go and do extra ballet classes. And so I did that, and I went after school to Merle Park's ballet school in Chiswick, which was really small. So it was a really different atmosphere. There were probably maybe 5 of us in the class. It was really small. It was a very small studio as well. And we had Shirley Graham and Merle Park and Tanya Fairbairn teaching us. And they were all fantastic. And I kind of felt like I was really getting somewhere with those classes, but it was knackering, you know, for a 12-year-old. It was quite an academic school, so we had loads of homework, and my life just consisted of school, homework, ballet, bed, and that was it. You know, I didn't meet friends after school. I didn't do anything else, and I'd take my hat off to anybody who does that for the full kind of 5 years, because I don't think I could have managed. Oh, well, something would have given, probably my schoolwork would have given in the end.
Yeah.
But I was so kind of dedicated, you know, that I really put everything into my schoolwork as well. So I found that quite stressful, actually, that year. And then towards the middle of that academic year, Merle Park told my parents that the others were auditioning for White Lodge, for the third year at White Lodge. The other people in the class had not previously auditioned. And she suggested that I might want to re-audition. When I was 10 or whatever, when I first auditioned, they told my ballet teacher that I was too short and stocky and I would never be a classical dancer.
Wow.
And that's why they didn't take me. And so my parents, understandably, were a bit reluctant to put me through that again.
Yeah.
Because they thought, what if she's rejected again? What's that going to do to her? Because at the time they had said to me, look, if you still want to do this, then fine, we'll find you somewhere else. We'll help you do that. You don't have to listen to them. And that was a good lesson from them, that people that tell you these things aren't always right. And I immediately, it was suggested, I was like, yes, I want to audition, So we all did the audition again. And I think by then it was only like 3 of us that were auditioning for third year, and we all got in. And interestingly, all the people that they had taken from junior associates age 10 had been chucked out by then.
That just, that just proves everything, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think my dad gave the headmistress quite a hard time when they gave me a place, because he was like, you rejected her when she was 10, and you told her she'd never be a dancer. What's changed? She's still the same person. We always knew that she really wanted to do this, The poor woman, she was like, well, she's grown a lot, and it's
just makes us, because it should be about the dancing.
Yeah.
We hear it time and time again.
Yeah.
And of course, you're 10, short and stocky. Well, you're not going to be that height when you're an adult. Of course you're not.
They do all the kind of, they used to, I don't know if they still do, they used to x-ray your wrist to see how much the bones are grown together and predict your height. And to be fair, they were spot on with my prediction. Right. But there's just more to it, isn't there? To be fair, they were right. I was too short and stocky, and it was always a problem, but I really wanted to do it, so I was motivated. And I wasn't the only short one, yes, I was kind of always the smallest, but only by a tiny bit.
Just meant you were always front row.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, yeah. And so then I went to the Royal Ballet School, but I couldn't be a boarder because they didn't have enough dormitory space.
Right.
And we lived in Richmond, Twickenham.
Fair enough.
Right then, they were like, you have to be a day girl.
Yeah.
And that was horrid because I was the only day girl.
Oh.
So everybody else kind of had fun after school, and I missed out on it a lot, and I would beg them to let me board, which they finally did in 5th year. So I guess because they chucked some more people out by then. So I did board finally. And then of course we all auditioned for the upper school, and not everybody got in.
It's so difficult, isn't it? I didn't get in. I auditioned when I was 14, and then again when I was 16 and got in. So it was, but they're constantly sort of assessing you. Are you right? And aren't you right? And what are they going to do? And it can be quite cutthroat at times. And
it totally is.
Yeah, I guess that was me putting it mildly.
But it is, and it's sort of, you can understand that it is, because it's a really hard career and only a few people are really going to make it and have a career. And I suppose one of the reasons they're looking for the right body, theoretically, is that you're less likely to injure yourself if you have the right kind of facility in your body. But, a lot of the time it's really just about shape and insteps and long legs. And interestingly, what my dad always complained about was that when they rejected me at age 10, nobody had actually talked to me to find out anything, there's no element of interview about these auditions. They're purely going on what they see in class. So what they miss out on is finding out about motivation and maybe weeding out those people who've just been shoved into a ballet class. It's probably not practical for them to interview all the kids. Maybe there's safeguarding issues, I don't know, but I just think what they don't find out is the motivation.
Yeah, because I guess you could dance with passion because you're really enjoying the steps or the music, but that's still not enough of an indicator as to what's really going on in the inside. And if someone has extreme anxiety problems, like they're going to need a bit of extra attention. And it's that whole treat everybody the same, yet everyone is so different. And because it's all about how you dance, they're completely missing all the different personality types, what's making someone motivated. You know, some people, they want the tough love. Me, no, I need, I like to be criticized. It's the only way you can improve, you know, but it doesn't have to be, that was rubbish, do it again. What was that? That was horrible. That
only works for a few people.
Yeah.
Really, that kind of treatment.
Yeah. I mean, I hope it's better now. Is it better now?
I like to think it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether the ballet world has done that much to try and work out what they have to do to make it better. So, yes, there's an acknowledgement that you're not supposed to bully people.
Yeah.
But how do you train teachers to not just repeat the way they were taught, to not repeat the abuse that they suffered? Maybe it worked for them, and so they think, you know, it's a tough career. You've just got to be tough, sink or swim. You know that, and you know, it's an artistic career, and there's more to it than just being tough. And I don't know whether there is enough training for. I feel like every ballet teacher should have coaching training.
Yes.
Because when you train as a coach, as in a life coach, you have to examine language and means of communication.
Yeah.
And it's really revealing.
Yeah, because there were times when I was stood at the side feeling nervous about a step and they're going, come on, Candy, instead of, you know, if they were to have that training, they would go, oh, something's bothering her. Let's find out what it is. But again, do they care enough to explore that?
There's a few jobs and lots of people that want them, and so they can afford the wastage, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it's good because otherwise I wouldn't have a future job to go into.
This is true.
There is that.
I know.
So the whole short and stocky thing, was that something that went away? You were accepted and it was all about your dancing? What happened?
No, never. No, that followed me my whole career, really. All the way. I mean, it kind of, so I had grown just before I went to White Lodge, and I kind of got a bit longer, you know, but as we all know, growth doesn't happen like that. You know, you kind of, growth
out and up.
Kind of. And I remember at White Lodge kind of getting a poke on the bottom by one of the teachers and her going, getting a little bit big. You know.
Well, now that's sugarcoating it. Oh my gosh.
You know, so yeah, it was there all the time. And of course, zero nutrition education. You know, there's just nothing really. I mean, the food wasn't even very good at the school. So, and same at the upper school. We all saw how the favourites were the people who had the very long legs and were very slim. And when I starved myself to get thinner, I always got praise about how I looked. You know, so
how did that make you feel?
I don't know. I'm not sure I ever really thought about that. Like, I wanted this career so much. I really would have been prepared to do anything. And you don't think long term at that age. I didn't understand about what starvation does to your metabolism. That was something I discovered later in life, and kind of went, oh, okay, I messed that up then, and there's something empowering about, feeling like you're getting that kind of body that is praised and looks better, and, and it's going to get you places, and you get cast, and, and I think it was only really a few years, so several years into my career. So we used to have an interview with the director every year at the end of the year. And every year he would talk about my physique and what was wrong with it, and how much he liked my dancing, but what was wrong with my body, And so, I was constantly kind of starving myself, and then you can't keep it up. You can't do that constantly and manage to dance. So you do it for a bit and you feel good, and then you eat again, and then you feel crap, and So it was round and round, really, until I started to educate myself, and started to really kind of realize that I couldn't keep this up. This was no way to kind of continue. I started, and there was more was being talked about in the ballet world at this point about nutrition and appropriate diet, and I did eventually say, okay, enough. I'm not going to keep doing this. I'm just going to try to be healthy. But all they really care about is the results in the end. They don't really care how you do it, as long as you achieve the results.
And it's a really hard thing to hear and experience. I mean, I didn't see it firsthand, and I mean, maybe they were just hiding it really well when I was at the school. I didn't see anyone really with eating disorders, and no one really talked about the fact that they were getting poked or told to lose weight. I don't remember it, but maybe they were being very, very quiet about it.
We didn't talk about it.
Right.
I don't remember it being talked about, other than people would kind of say, you could see people looking in the mirror and looking at their bottom and kind of going, you see it. But we didn't talk about it. So I think the people who don't have that issue don't know what's going on. They don't know what's happening with their friends at school and what they're being told.
Feeling very oblivious right now, sorry to all the people that probably were struggling, and I had no idea.
No, but that's something I've discovered in later years about people I was at school with. That you discovered were unhappy and you didn't realise, because we learn as dancers, we learn how to put a front on, because that's what performing is.
Yes.
When do you stop performing and actually be what's really going on?
Yeah. And what's horrible is you were getting praised for the starving. So you're like, well, this is kind of what I have to do. And it really was a testament to how much they actually care about you looking the part over being a good dancer, because surely you would have seen the difference between how you dance when you were starving and then when you're eating healthy.
I don't know. I do remember at school having kind of really restricted my eating a lot and feeling weak because of it. Yeah. And something kind of clicked. I kind of went, okay, I maybe can't keep doing this,
Yeah.
I mean, mostly it was the work that, like when I was doing a lot of work, that was when I was able to kind of look okay and eat reasonably well. And it's the problem was when you get told, oh, I can't put you in that, because I got told that it was very erratic as well. So 1 minute it's like, I can't put you in a tutu. I don't want you in a tutu.
I don't want you. Oh my gosh.
Then the next minute, it's a leotard and tights ballet, and you're not in it, and it's because it's that, and then suddenly you are in the. It was erratic, but yeah, that's when I was at my best was when I was just doing a lot of work, and then the fitness kind of happens because you're working hard and doing a lot. But usually the reaction was always to take people out of stuff when they were too big. So then how do you lose weight when you're not doing anything?
I mean, that's the most awful punishment a dancer could possibly have.
Yeah.
And it's the opposite end as well. Like, people would take people off for being too skinny.
Thin, yes.
And then too big. In their opinion, not too big. Like, really not. But it's sad. I mean, like, I remember watching you, and I'm a big fan, big Dorcas fan. And I was 15 years old, and I would play Capalia on the TV, and then I would just shimmy across and be like, I was pretending to be you. And all I remember thinking was how powerful and how springy you were, but how effortless you made it look. And that was the point. I was just like, and it was your arms, the most beautiful arms. And so I was copying you because I was convinced that if I could dance like you and be effortless, and I did get into the school, and it was because I was trying to be like you. So I hope that it's a tough one because you can't rewrite history, but you were an incredible dancer. And I didn't once think, oh, she needs to lose weight. Didn't ever cross my mind.
Yeah. No, but the thing is, that the general public out there wouldn't ever have thought that anybody, I mean, they will notice if somebody's really big, but we're almost never talking about somebody that's really big in these situations.
No.
It's relative. And they don't notice that on the whole. They notice how you dance.
Yeah, exactly. That is the most important thing, how you dance. I mean, ballet today is different. It is all about nutrition and longevity and fitness, and
Yeah.
So it is better.
I do think things have improved now. It's not, it's never going to go away because there's always going to be a physical aesthetic attached to the art form.
Exactly. It doesn't matter what kind of write-ups or TV programs are done on it. This is the way it is.
We're striving for perfection, which can't be achieved.
Nope.
And there's an aesthetic. Yes, long legs make a difference to the line. They just do, and we can't change that. But I think within a certain aesthetic, we can have more tolerance, I think, and more care for well-being.
Yeah.
I hope it's changed.
I hope so.
I think it has.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm hearing. I hope it is. I mean,
and dancers, a lot of dance, it's in ballet companies, dancers have a lot more access to nutritional advice, to ways to keep themselves strong and fit. Maybe when they've got a period of not working or they're injured, they have access to a lot more. Yeah. That's not true for independent dancers necessarily.
No.
But for ballet dancers, they're really lucky because a lot of them have a lot of facilities now available to them.
They do.
Which we didn't have at the start of my career. There was none of that. So things have improved.
Yeah. Tell me how you got from the school into the company. I actually don't know the story.
So in my second year at the upper school, SAD as well as Royal Ballet were looking for people to go on tour. They had a few people injured, and this would have been like just in the first term. They were looking for people to go on tour doing Sleeping Beauty. And I got to go on the most amazing tour. So I was told initially I was going to North America. And I was doing lilac attendants and nymphs and all of the core stuff, small course parts in Sleeping Beauty. And then the person that was injured wasn't better in time. So halfway through the tour, they say, actually, you're not going home, you're staying. So I ended up doing the whole tour, which was 9 weeks, North and South America, down to Brazil and Venezuela and Mexico. I mean, what about that's
incredible.
A start. That is quite a start. I had to, so during the tour, the rep changed. So we did a lot of Sleeping Beauty, but then they were doing Coppelia. So I had 3 days to learn Coppelia Friends and just do all of that. And just, did loads of stuff and came back. And I remember saying to my parents, I want to join that company. That's where I want to be. And at the time, the way it worked at the school, I don't know if this is the same now, the Royal Ballet Company would kind of have first dibs on who they wanted. And if there was somebody that they didn't want, then Sanders Wells Royal Ballet would be able. And the dancers weren't part of this conversation at all. So the directors would come and watch the grads classes or, performances, and would kind of decide between themselves who was going to get which dancer. And then people would just get told at the end of the year, you've got a contract with Royal. They'd never know if Sanders Wells Royal Ballet would have offered them a contract as well, because they weren't given that choice, And so my parents, coming from the theatre world, said, well, you need to write to Peter Wright and tell him that you want to join his company. And I went, I can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. You don't do that. And I then went on tour again. They were doing Coppelia again, and they were doing touring around this country. And so they were like, we need her again. And off I went again. And then I went to Israel as well.
Wow.
I did so much as a student before I even joined the company. And eventually I kind of was like, actually, maybe mum and dad are right. So they helped me write this letter to Peter saying, I've really loved working with the company and I would really like to join, and I don't know if anybody had ever done that before. And he did mention it when he gave me a contract. And so, I think it was probably the spring of that year, I got told I had a contract. At the same time, I got told I couldn't be in the school show because I wasn't there enough for the rehearsals.
Right.
They rehearse the school show for like 6 months.
They do, yeah.
But, I'm like, if I can learn Coppelia in 3 days, I think I can, but no, it was like punishment.
It sounds like it.
Off and enjoyed myself. So I joined after my second year at upper school and was really pleased to join the company. But 6 months later, I got told by Peter, there were about 4 of us at the same time. We got told we weren't going to have our contracts renewed.
Oh.
So when you joined the company in those days, you joined on a 6-month contract before you got like a full one. And we got told that all different reasons. But of course, with me, it was like, I really love your dancing, but the body's not right. Maybe you should think about joining a contemporary company because it doesn't matter so much what you look like. I know. And so as far as I know, I was the only one of us who argued with him. And I just went, give me more time, give me more time. Give me another 6 months. So I starved myself for 6 months,
gosh.
to get my contract, which, it's counterproductive, but it got me my contract.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness me. So it carried on throughout your entire career. But
you know what? I'd do it again.
Damn, that's one of my questions.
I would change how I handled it. I wish I could have had more help, more knowledge, better education about nutrition, but I'd still do the career,
Yeah. It is a fantastic career and it's such a privilege. I think you mentioned to me in a previous conversation that we kind of are made to feel like we have to feel privileged, even if it is a privilege. And of course it is a privilege to be a ballerina, but we have to think like that instead of just be in the mindset of just working on ourselves to be the best that we can possibly be as dancers. It's just, you're replaceable.
Yeah.
So don't ever feel like, it is a privilege to be here.
Yeah.
I don't like that approach. Again, I hope that's changed now, but I'm not sure.
No. I mean, I think, I look back and I think there are lots of things that I wish I could have known. Maybe it's never possible. I think that's just life, isn't it? You wish you could have the wisdom of a 40-year-old when you're 20.
Yes.
But I wish I had allowed myself to accept myself and focus on the good things more and really make the most of the good things.
Yeah.
And just really enjoy the fact, allowed myself to enjoy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I didn't enjoy it. I had lots of really enjoyable moments, but there's always this kind of underlying dissatisfaction with yourself,
Yeah.
And I think it's fairly universal amongst dancers.
I'd say so.
And I think it's quite a gift to be able to just be very accepting of yourself. Not accepting as in I'm good enough, and there's no improvement to be made, but accepting in a being kind to yourself, and actually just go, this is an amazing career and I just need to enjoy it. I need to put all my effort into the good side, the good parts of it.
Exactly.
I think that's the only thing I would change if I could and do it again.
And I wish I'd stayed longer, but then it wasn't right for me at that time. And I was so ready to leave. My mental state just I could not carry on, but I do have dreams about it. Sometimes I'm on the stage and I wake up and I'm quite emotional and I'm like, oh, and even being back here in Birmingham today, there's this part of me, this real sort of emotional pull. People be like, it's Birmingham, but to us, it's like, it's Birmingham. Like, it holds a piece of my heart.
It's a real shame it's not the kind of career that you can go
dip in and out.
Come back to easily. Because I think actually if it were, so many people would really benefit from doing that.
Yeah, just have a bit of a break, because I think that's what I needed to have a break. But then I figured out that life is actually really fun. So I did have that. Which I don't regret. But it would be good if there was if someone is really struggling mentally, there's a lot of external problems going on, or even internally, they need a break. Give them a little breathing space to do that.
Sometimes it's a break. Sometimes people just need a change, and people need to have the courage to go somewhere else where they might be thought of differently. Yeah.
Because you do get stuck into that, like you're sucked into the one company, but actually there's so many companies out there. And there could be one that's better suited, like a partner.
Well, and exactly going back to like what I was told at 10, just because the Royal Ballet thinks that you're XYZ or you're not right for them, somebody else might have another company in another country might have a totally different view of you, and it's finding the right place. And that'll be the right director as well, because the company can change according to the director that's in charge. So, I think people shouldn't be put off too easily. Definitely.
And for anyone who's coming up, that's something that they do need to feel, that they do have a bit of control, a bit of power. Like, it's your career. Yes, it may be in the hands of someone else, but it doesn't mean that if they say no, it's no everywhere.
No, exactly.
It's just, if you do what you love, just keep going. Which brings me on to my next question. One day, I joined the company when you were still there, and I can only say it to you now, but I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm in the same room as her. I can't even begin to tell you how excited I was, and I was trying to play it so cool. I don't think I was cool though. But you were there. It seemed like you were there one day, and then suddenly you were kind of gone, and I just don't really know what happened. If you're happy to share it, that would be lovely.
Yeah. So there's looking back now, I now can trace back to a point where I think something started to go wrong with my thyroid. I was diagnosed hypothyroid later, but now that I know more about that, there's a point at which I can go, oh, something was going wrong. But I didn't know that at the time. I'd had a particularly stressful year because I'd had an operation on my leg and came back and was doing Juliet and Maggie Hobson in Hobson's Choice. 2 fantastic roles. But Juliet was really hard for me because it was made very clear to me that quite a few of the staff didn't really think I should be doing it.
Oh my goodness.
Which gave me quite a kind of complex, it was really hard to kind of get through that. And then I went straight into Maggie Hobson, and I think I didn't realise until the summer holidays quite how stressful it had been. And I came back, and I've actually got a passport photo from that time. I needed a new passport at that time. And I look at that photo now, and I can see my eyes have gone puffy. Like right. If you look at my face in that photo, it's different to my face now.
Right.
It's gone all kind of puffy.
Right.
And what I now think is that was my thyroid, because this is what, when your thyroid slows down, so I suspect I always had a slightly underactive thyroid,
possibly.
Which is why losing weight was so difficult, because it slows down everything, slows down your metabolism. You put on weight, you can get a bit puffy and cold, and there's tons of symptoms anyway. But came back and they were casting another ballet, and the woman didn't want me in it. She was like first week back of the season, and I had put on weight, and she didn't want me in it because she didn't like how I looked, not long legs and all of that. And then by the January, I was pregnant. So I had decided in that autumn term that I wanted to have a baby. And having spent so much of my career kind of starving myself, not eating very well, I got really conscious about being healthy, about making sure I was like, I have to be healthy if I'm going to be pregnant. So that didn't really help. I was trying to eat really well and not starve myself.
Yeah, which is impossible when you're pregnant because you're always hungry anyway.
You're always hungry. And so anyway, had the baby, came back. I had decided when I was going to be back. Bad mistake. Don't ever do this. When you're pregnant and you're a dancer, don't make decisions about how long your maternity leave is going to be and when you're going to be back dancing, because you cannot predict how you're going to feel, what's going to happen, what kind of birth you're going to have. But being kind of stubborn like I am, I kind of went, I'm going to do female garde in June, and I'm giving birth in October. And didn't take the time to go, just take a bit of time. Are you ready to go back to work? Went back in, I think it was like April or something. Right. I took 6 months and had issues. So then it transpired this was my thyroid.
Right.
Had gone up the spout. And I had wrist problems, so it can cause joint pains. And I'd started losing weight breastfeeding, because it really helps to lose the weight. And then it just stopped and I couldn't lose any more weight. And this was the thyroid.
Yeah.
This was the thyroid.
Yeah.
I couldn't lose any more weight. So I had wrist problems and but I still went back to work, and I should have just gone, you know what? My body needs a bit longer.
Yeah.
It takes you a year to recover from being pregnant.
Yeah.
It takes your body a year regardless. Some people, they do get back to dancing really soon, but it still takes your body a year to get back. So I but I just went, I'm going back. First week back at work, I'm seeing the physio and stuff for my wrist. And first week back at work, I get a message from somebody saying, you're being called into the director's office. And I go into the director's office, and he basically says, I have no need of you next year, and you will be retiring at the end of the season, which is a few months away, like 3 months away. You know, and it's, I don't think you're in a position when you've, just given birth 6 months before, and you're trying, you've just walked back into the studio to try and start moving again, to argue a lot,
No, I guess
kind of, you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's a long story there, but there's not a lot you can say to somebody who says, basically, I don't want to cast you anymore, and I don't think you're up to it anymore. How do you prove that when you've just had a baby? You can't.
That seems a little unfair to me. I mean, yes, you needed more time, but they should have given you more time.
Yeah, I should have taken a year, but I think, do you know what? I think, maybe nobody ever knows when the right time to stop dancing is.
Yeah.
But after 18 years in the company, I think it would have been nice for me to have finished my career on stage. That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to have a last performance. I see sometimes, on Instagram and, on TV, sometimes, you see people's last performances.
Yeah.
And these days, there's videos on Instagram and stuff like that. And I just think that's what makes me so sad, is that I never had that chance to just say goodbye to the thing I'd spent my entire life doing.
Yeah.
And I think it wouldn't be a lot to ask to give somebody a year's kind of notice and say, let's find you something nice to do for your last show.
Yeah, they weren't thinking about you and your needs at all.
No, or, maybe would you like to spend a year teaching some classes? Or, if you think, at this point, I mean, I'd literally just walked back into the building, so I didn't know even if I was going to get back to dancing. But in my mind, I had this, I was going to come back stronger than ever and, be better than ever.
Yeah.
And I think actually older dancers have quite a lot to offer.
Definitely. And trust your body more.
Yeah, and maybe just a little bit of leeway. I felt like after 18 years, maybe I'd earned a little bit of leeway.
What about doing some character things while you were getting yourself back? Yeah. There's so much that could have been done.
There's all sorts that you just, it's like you're throwing away a resource.
Yeah.
And it didn't have to end like that. It didn't have to end acrimoniously. It didn't. And this is why I disappeared, because I was trying to find out my rights for a while. I fought it,
Goodness
for a
me.
bit. And then it was the end of the season, and then I just never came back.
Yeah.
And so I didn't get a party, I didn't get a last show, I didn't get, any of those things that I used to dream about it, because all those years when people leave the company over the years and, Desmond or Peter would make a speech about them, and then they'd get their presents, and people would say stuff, and I would, over the years, you'd think about, what am I going to say when I leave, or, what, nothing. It's all just gone by, and that took me a long time
I was
to get
going
over.
to say
It. I think it's just, I think for any dancer, the end of the career is really difficult. It's always going to be difficult because your whole identity is tied up in this career. But when it ends, either traumatically, it might be an injury, or whatever. When it ends abruptly and unplanned, it's even harder to get over. And I would have dreams, I still have dreams sometimes about dancing. Yeah. Weird. I still get anxiety dreams sometimes, like you're supposed to be on stage in 2 seconds and you haven't got your shoes on, but not done, and it's like panic.
I wonder if everybody who's in the dancing has a version of a dream like that, because I used to have those. But couldn't get my costume on.
I didn't have them when I was dancing. No. I've only had them since I stopped. It's really weird. Yeah, and I still have. I'd hear music, when it's now I've kind of come through it, and I can look back more kind of dispassionately. But there were times really close where, it felt like PTSD, it felt, which I kind of hate saying, because I feel like there are people who've really earned that, as an issue. If you've had your legs blown off in Afghanistan, or, you've just seen awful things, and I don't feel like I have a right to describe what I went through as that. But it's pretty similar, it's the flashbacks, you get that. And, and I just think people could be more helpful. I would sometimes I'd hear music, and I'd burst into tears because it suddenly, it brought back some sort of memory. Yeah.
I think I still get very emotional with certain types of music. Romeo and Juliet is something I just can't listen to. I'm just like, that's it, I'm done. I couldn't, if it was on, I mean, it's a beautiful ballet and you must go and see if it's on, but it's not.
Surely every dancer feels like that. I think Romeo and Juliet's one of those ones. That music.
The music is, yes, amazing. Yeah. But I think it is post-traumatic stress that you went through.
Yeah, and I think, and it's an issue for all dancers, not just dancers. So it applies to anybody who's put so much time and motivation and concentration and training and all of that into a career. It becomes their identity. And then that identity's gone. And it's like, who am I now? How do I don't, possibly, if you have children, maybe that helps. I don't know, because you do have some new identity as a mother. I think, but also to some extent, I didn't have the time or the headspace to process it because I had a baby to look after, so maybe it took longer because I just had to get on with things.
Yeah, you repressed it. And that's the thing, when you repress things, it's like a ball that you're just pushing under the water, and then it just comes up when you least expect it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what did you do afterwards? So you left and you thought, yes,
how are we going to pay the mortgage? People, there's that as well. Quite aside from I was the main breadwinner, and it's like, shit, what do we do? So I was like, well, my husband was in the orchestra, so he was going on tour still. So I was like, I need something I can do from home, because, I can't, this nursery is really expensive.
Extortionate.
It's like, oh God, maybe I can put him into nursery for one day a week, So that's a problem for everybody. How do you get a job that pays more than the nursery costs? And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had kind of all different ideas. And that's the other thing about an abrupt ending to a career, is you don't have the time and space to think about what you really do want to do.
Yeah.
Ideally, you should be exploring that in the 3 or 4 years before you stop dancing.
Yes.
It's pretty hard to do that, really, realistically, because the time constraints make it very difficult. But that would be the ideal. And so I thought, well, I just need to do something that will earn some money. It doesn't really matter what it is. And I started looking at just businesses, like what can I, I don't know, what can I do? Went to the National Franchise Exhibition at the NEC. And there I got pointed by somebody to a stall, which was a My Mag stall. And it was this couple from Solihull who had started a local magazine, little A5 magazine, and it just advertised local businesses and they delivered it to their local area. And they basically just sold you a business package to help you set up your magazine in your area. And I looked at this and I went, I guess I can do that. I don't know if they can do it. I guess I can do it. And so I bought one of these packages and just went home and set up a magazine. At the time, so this is 2005, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
There weren't really online directories in those days. Most small businesses did not have a website, and they paid a fortune to be in the yellow pages. And so I just went around these local businesses. They gave you some copies of a sample magazine. I said, I'm going to make a magazine like this. Would you like to be in it? And they all said yes.
Brilliant.
Because there was a need for it. And I think in Bourneville as well, that was a particularly kind of receptive area to it. And I went home, and lots of them didn't have any adverts, for their own. So I would design their adverts. That was my favorite.
Wow.
Was designing the ad.
The creative bit.
So yeah, the gardeners, and then you used sort of Microsoft images, and it was all done on Microsoft Publisher. Took it off to a printer and they printed it. And then my husband and my dad and me all went round Bourneville delivering it into letterboxes. It was really successful.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, and I did that for a bit. And then I bought a franchise for an online directory.
Very smart.
It was probably, yes and no. It was a little bit early for online directories.
Mm-hmm.
So interestingly, all the businesses that were in the magazine that really liked the magazine, they liked it because it actually got delivered rather than thrown in the canal.
Yeah.
And people like looking at their advert. They like having a thing they can hold in their hands and go, that's me.
I get that. I totally get it.
They like it.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to be on the online directory, even though it was half the price. Most of them were really skeptical. I'm not really sure why I need to be on there, let's say, and it's which is almost unbelievable now. Things have changed so much since 2005, 6. So that was actually a struggle because it was a proper franchise business and there were franchise fees to pay. And so I made much more money from the magazine than I did from the online directory. However, I sold the magazine, which was great, made a profit, sold the magazine. I'm still proud of that. It's still going. It still gets delivered into my letterbox.
So you're an entrepreneur as well, look at you.
And I ran the online directory for a bit. And after a while, I kind of went, why am I in advertising? What am I doing? Is this really what I want to do? And I suppose, by this point, I'd stopped dancing for about 5 years or so. And I suddenly realized that I didn't feel like me anymore. It's that identity thing. So I'd taken on a new identity as an entrepreneur,
yes,
a businesswoman, and it's what I always thought I would enjoy, but I didn't quite feel like me. It's like there was a whole side of myself that wasn't being expressed.
Yes,
and I realised that I was still really a dancer.
Yeah, it never leaves you.
I think you just are. You just are a dancer.
Yeah.
And I thought, what do I do? I didn't fancy going and doing a teacher training course, partly because you had to get up and do everything. And I didn't think I could cope with being in a ballet studio. And looking at myself in the mirror and not living up to previous expectations. Psychologically, I didn't think I could go there, but I wanted to move. I wanted to feel expressive, and I went down to London and had a gyrotonic lesson I knew a few dancers who had trained as gyrotonic teachers. So I kind of knew a bit about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I went down to London and had a lesson and virtually burst into tears during this lesson.
Really?
Because it felt so good.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of went, oh, there you are.
Yeah.
This is me, Suddenly it was like, oh yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to move, and also because I realized I should have been doing it my whole career and how useful it would have been. And I hadn't had the opportunity, and kind of made an instant decision that I was going to train as a teacher. At the same time, I was not sure that just teaching something like that was going to be enough for me. Like, I don't know, I couldn't imagine just doing that somehow. And so kind of almost at the same time, I applied for the Clore Leadership Programme.
Mm-hmm.
So the Clore Leadership Programme is like an arts leadership development programme. And it's funded by the Arts Council and various other bodies within the arts world. And I knew 2 previous dancers who'd done. So each year they would have one dance fellow. So there'd be like a museums fellow, a theatre fellow, an arts council fellow, so they're all sponsored by a different organisation. And there'd be one dance fellow sponsored by the Dancers Career Development. And it sounded really exciting. It sounded great. It sounded really exciting.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing programme. And I kind of went, I feel like I wanted to be in an arts organisation, I think.
Yeah.
I think I had realised that I missed, as most dancers do when they retire, they miss the company. They miss being with you spend all your time with these people, really like much longer working hours than your average person.
Yeah.
And so it's like a really big family, and suddenly that family's gone, and you're on your own.
Yeah.
And so a lot of dancers will say that's what they miss, like the dressing room.
Yes.
The changing room.
Mm-hmm.
And so I applied for the Clore, thinking, well, I might not get that anyway. But I'll do the Gyrotonic teacher training, and then I got the Clore program, and I finished my Gyrotonic teacher training, and went straight into the Clore program, which was amazing. And I did we had so many really good kind of training sessions, courses. I did fundraising training. I did coaching training. We went on secondment to organisations. I went to the RSC for a while and worked on some stuff there, and it was brilliant. And what I really wanted was maybe to find an arts organisation to work in. But this was just kind of post the 2008 financial crash.
Yeah.
And it was a really bad time to be looking for a job. And we did laugh, my cohort of Clore fellows, we did laugh about the fact that we were probably going to be the most unemployed cohort of fellows, because it was just, it went on quite a while, that recession. And so, each job had like over 100 people applying for it.
Yeah.
And so I applied for various jobs to start with in kind of maybe dance related organisations and then some theatre organisations, and got some interviews, mostly didn't even get an interview. Sometimes got an interview and that's a horrid process. Not having ever done any of this, applying for a job before and trying to write a CV and then getting questions.
Oh, no.
Things.
Yeah.
And mostly what they said was that you don't have enough experience in the area that you're applying for. Which,
it's like, give me a chance.
Well, yeah, surely everybody at some point has no experience, and
exactly.
But the lower down job was that I applied for, so they gradually got less and less ambitious, the things I was applying for. Then they would say I was overqualified.
My goodness.
So,
yeah.
And that was a really demoralizing process. And I think there's only so long you can really keep optimistically applying for a job and kind of imagining yourself into a whole new scenario, and then not getting it, and then applying for another one, and quite often not even finding out why, and in the end I just went, forget it. I'm going to stop trying to get somebody else to employ me. I'm going to employ myself.
Good move.
And I'm just going to teach my Gyrotonic, and I can do that, and I don't have to ask anybody. I just do it.
Yes, exactly.
I don't have to persuade anybody that I can or that they should employ me. I just do it.
That's amazing.
And so then I focused on the Gyrotonic.
So tell me a bit about the Gyrotonics. I'm sure there's people listening and going, what is that? What is that?
So it was invented by a dancer back in the early 80s. Mm-hmm. And there are some very simple ways to describe it, which is sort of like yoga on a machine.
Nice, yeah.
Or dancing with machines, I think. That's a good hashtag on Instagram. I use that, dancing with machines. It's essentially, it is a mind-body movement practice. It's very, very adaptable. So you can have somebody who doesn't move at all, who sits at a desk all day, doesn't do any exercise,
mm-hmm.
And you're helping them with their posture and breathing, and there's a lot of breath work in it, but it's about moving. So it differs from some other practices in that everything keeps moving. It's very circular, It's very flowing, lots of spirals, which is why dancers love it, because it kind of feels a bit like dancing.
Yes, yeah.
Dancers always love it, and all dancers should do it, really. I found out so much about how I use my body that I wish I'd known when I was dancing, so much. I don't think I learned how to do abdominal exercises properly until I did my training.
Really?
Yeah. So when I was dancing, I used to do sit-ups, desperate to get that six-pack. But I would always hurt my hip flexors.
Right.
My hip flexors just would, they'd do all the work. And it wasn't until I was doing this training that I kind of finally worked out why, and was able to do abdominal work in a different way, and went, oh my goodness, that's how you do it. Suddenly my hip flexors don't hurt, and I can do abdominals, and just so many things I wish I'd known.
So is it mostly dancers that come to you?
I probably about half and half.
Really?
Yeah. So, it's difficult for the dancers to get away from work and have a big enough gap that they can come to the studio and do a session and get back again. I think they would do it if they didn't have to travel to me. But then I have, just ordinary people who maybe hate going to the gym. They don't want to do that kind of stuff. I purposely don't have any mirrors in my studio. Mm-hmm. Because it's not about what you look like, it's about what it feels like.
I love that.
It's quite nice having this really wide variety of people, so with the dancers, we can get into the real kind of nitty gritty, fine technical stuff.
Yeah.
They can do some of the really hard exercises. And then you have somebody that you're literally just teaching them to open their chest and put their shoulders back, but sometimes for those people, the smallest thing can have the most huge impact,
Yeah, I was going to say, is it helpful for injuries?
Yeah. There's lots of stories about people, recovering from hip replacements, even avoiding hip replacements by doing this kind of, because it's about balance through the body. It's the way I work and the way the system works really is that even with an injury, you're not just focusing on that area, that bit that's painful. It's always about integrating the whole body, because we're a whole system. Nothing works in isolation. And so you're always looking for balance through the body and spreading the load so that everything works. And coordination. Dancers take coordination for granted, but just basic coordination can be quite a challenge for a lot of people. And when you've got an injury, you get even more unbalanced, because you have a knee injury, the other side takes all the strain, and you start walking strangely, so your back hurts, and it's, you can adapt the system so that, I have a client who's in a wheelchair,
That's incredible.
You can adapt the system to anybody. And obviously what I do with her is completely different to what I do with the dancers.
Yeah.
And it depends on the person that walks into the room. So part of it is about kind of sensing what you think they are in need of, and what they're like that day, so I might have a client who one day walks in and they're ready to kind of really push themselves and do some tough stuff, and the next time they might walk in and they're seriously stressed, whatever it is has happened in their day or their week, and they're really stressed, and actually they just need to relax, and so that day it might be that we're lying on the floor and we're doing breathing and we're bringing the system down, calming it down, and just allowing them to de-stress.
That's really good. So, I love that. And it's so personal.
Yeah,
totally, I think that's really lovely, and probably really nice for you, because you found a way to be creative, for it to be simply about how you move and feeling confident in your own skin, not about the exterior. Like, it's the perfect thing for you to do. And because of your understanding of how painful it can be to always be judging how you look, you're gonna understand other people, and you'll probably get a feeling of them, like, it's a good job they don't have the mirrors, because we need them to think about how they are internally and how they move, and that's it, nothing else.
I had a client who was a very large lady, she didn't want to go to the gym because she felt everybody was just looking at her, She was trying to lose weight, but she didn't like going into these environments where she felt she was being judged, so she loved the fact that she could just come in here, and it was, there was nothing she couldn't do. Everything was adapted, to suit her, and it was just about how she felt and feeling good. Because, I think if you're trying to lose weight, if you've got a lot of weight to lose, the barrier of feeling bad about yourself is quite a big one to get over.
Yeah.
So that should never be underestimated, the power of making people feel good about themselves.
And it's a really good incentive to carry on as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although I do love teaching the dancers.
Of course.
I do feel when I'm teaching the dancers that I'm using all of my kind of knowledge.
Yeah. And don't expect too much from me today, by the way.
I had stopped dancing for 6 years when I started doing this. So, and one of the reasons that I was virtually in tears was, I wish I could have been doing this when I was really in shape, because that would have been, there's things I can't do now that I could have done if I'd done it 20 years ago. And actually, for me as a teacher, the hardest thing was teaching non-dancers. So that was a really steep learning curve. Working out what I did when I'm faced with somebody who has no coordination and is not aware of where their limbs are going and what they're doing with them, you know? And I was just like, oh, I don't know what to do. How do I get this person, you know? So that was for me, the most valuable training I've had has been all the kind of the therapeutic stuff, learning to deal with people who aren't dancers. For other teachers, being faced with a dancer is scary because they just like, oh my God, they can do everything. It's, you know, they don't need any help. I don't mind. I'm because I can see all the cheats that the dancers do.
Oh yeah, I had many cheats. I think all dancers do, don't we? We all have our little cheats. You have to. Yeah. Because, you know,
that's how you got to, you just got to get up and do it, haven't you? Somehow.
You do. But it's interesting what you're saying about the overcompensating. I know a lot of people who are injured and then they're like their other hip is going and things like that. And my knee was playing up towards the end of my career. And I'm convinced it's because my left leg is very slightly shorter than my right leg, but also my rotation on my right leg was better than my left. So it was having to do a hell of a lot of work. So it pulled on my knee. Like I could see it now.
It's quite an interesting thing, that the balance. So we all love symmetry, really. And I, as a dancer, I can get quite hung up on symmetry. And I've kind of had to train that out of myself. So a lot of my trainers have talked about working with injured people. Doesn't matter if things are different. If that's the turnout on that leg, that's the turnout on that leg. And if that's that one, that's that. And they don't have to be the same. And I'm going, what? They don't have to be the same? You know? The circle doesn't have to be the same on both legs. What are you talking about? But it is what it is.
So you're just going to your capabilities. You're not pushing past.
You're not always trying to make somebody symmetrical. What you're trying to do is find enough balance that the body can work itself out. We aren't symmetrical. We're not. And, you know, we can function. we function without being symmetrical. But what you want is to just try and find as much ease through the body as is possible. Now, when you're dancing, it's always a little bit different because, yes, you're trying to get, you know, sometimes you're in a line and you're all supposed to have your leg the same height. And if for you, that is your leg it's difficult to get it up to that height, you cheat to achieve it.
You do.
You know, so you do. And I think then it's about, that's what you do on stage. And when you're not on stage and you're in class or you're doing your body conditioning and your other work, that's when you find the right balance through the body.
Definitely.
So that you don't cheat all the time. You cheat when you absolutely have to because you've got to achieve a certain position, but then you rebalance your body.
I think that's
outside of performing.
Because I definitely cheated all the time.
I know.
That's a really good thing to learn. I'm gonna have to wrap this up because we could just talk about this for hours and hours, days and days. But I just wanted to ask like a couple of questions, signing off questions. So what are you most grateful for?
Oh, that's a big one. Well, I suppose when I was very little, like about 3, I saw a ballet on TV. And apparently the story goes that I pointed at the TV and I said, I want to do that. And I got to do it. You know, you don't often meet people really in the rest of the world who've kind of actually got to do their dream. You know, they've actually, and I did. And there were lots of things not right about it. There were lots of things that could have gone better, but I still, you know, it's still better than having lived my whole life going, I wish I could have done that.
Yes.
Oh, you know,
Definitely.
I meet people all the time who say, I really wanted to be a ballet dancer, you know, but I don't know, I got told I was too tall, or I, you know, whatever it is, or they just never went to classes, or, you know, or whatever it is, not necessarily ballet. Maybe they wanted to be a singer, or they wanted to be an astronaut, or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
People have dreams all the time that are never fulfilled. And yeah, it's pretty cool, actually, I think, to go, I did it. You know?
Exactly.
It wasn't perfect, but I did it.
You did it. And the final question. If you could give any advice to performers and ballet dancers in the next generation, what would it be?
Oh, so much. So much.
Maybe just a couple of things. Yeah.
Really learn to be kind to yourself and appreciate, regardless of what other people say, learn to appreciate your body as a tool for artistic expression. That would be number one. And then really don't let the fear stop you. Like, go for it. Absolutely go for it. You don't want to be 40 years old and realize you should have just given it that bit more, or taken that extra risk, or I don't know, just dared a bit more. That really go for it. Leave it all out there, because, you know, what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
It's just dancing, and it's not going to kill you. And, you know, so put it all out there. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable to become an artist, because I think I spent too long worrying, you know, about just not being perfect, or, you know, not being quite right, you know. And if I could just take that away, that I think that, yeah, be vulnerable, be daring, don't be scared.
I think that's amazing. Oh, Dorcas, I've loved it today. I'm in awe. You can tell. I'm still trying to be the cool girl, but, you know, no, thank you so much for your time today. I've absolutely loved it.
It's been great to chat.
Thank you so much. Dorcas, thank you so much for showing me your beautiful studio and for the wonderful chat. I'm an even bigger fan now. What an absolute inspiration to the performing arts industry. Although the chat had some upsetting moments, I left feeling so uplifted. Dorcas is proof that you can find something you love that's within the industry. I was so lost for so long because I left without knowing what I really wanted to do next. But if you do have the luxury of time to start thinking about your next career, I'd strongly advise it. Please do keep supporting the show by clicking the subscribe button. It really does help, and it means a lot to me. My next show is the Valentine's special, another fabulous guest. Stay tuned, and bye for now.